One of the things I want to talk about tonight was this concept of vulnerability, um, to be vulnerable. I know early on in my life, specifically as I was growing up during those high school and college years, the idea of vulnerable had a lot to do with this feeling of out of control. And I would either act like I wasn't fearful, or I would try to change directions and point people away from uh, what may be exposed as me being fearful about something, or not knowing, or being in control of something, or just outright deny if I was in that state and someone made a comment to me and had point out what appeared to probably be very obvious on the outside, but I still did not want people to know what was going on the inside. I think for me, it started with this idea that I don't know exactly where it came from. I surely don't think it was a direct message from anywhere that somehow, as a boy who was trying to be a man, that I was not supposed to be afraid, and I wasn't supposed to be out of control. I wasn't supposed to not have an answer, or wasn't supposed to know what direction or where to go. I look back on that now and think about how almost silly that was, that as a 13-year-old or a 15-year-old or even a 21-year-old, that I was somehow supposed to have all the answers. How would I possibly think that I was going to have all the answers? But what I do know is that I acted and appeared to others that I had those answers. My way of doing it would be kind of being silent and sitting and waiting, and trying to gather more information and nod knowingly, even though I didn't know at all what I was doing, or kind of go along with whatever that flow was, or kind of pull back a little bit. It wasn't until later, during a very difficult time period in my life, where literally everything in my life as I knew it at that time had gotten taken away from me. Now, the truth was, it got taken away from me because of some choices I had made and things that I'd gotten caught up in the situation. But nonetheless, my world was upside down. Everything that I knew was in a non-normal state. Employment, regarding what my future looked like, all these different things very much seemed to be upside down, and there was a lot of unknowns. And in the midst of the unknown, there was a lot of fear that was going on, and there was a lot of anger, and then there was a lot of anger, and then there was more fear. Sometimes I directed that outward, many times, and more times than not, that it was directed inward toward me, and I wouldn't talk about it. It wasn't until a friend of mine came up to me and invited me into a process in which I could, or it was actually an event in which I could then learn the process of being able to identify how I was feeling, what those feelings were, and then in a safe environment, be able to learn how to express that. For me, it was in the midst of learning what men's work was, or men's psychology work was, and this happened during the early 90s, and I got to see what I later observed as some courageous men being able to be vulnerable in showing them doing some deep grief work and doing some work around some very painful situations. By observing those men, walking with those men during those difficult times, gave me permission and showed me a way to be able to do some of the same type of work for myself. In the midst of doing that work of that deep grief work, that I knew that I had to learn how to do, even though I was terrified of doing it and knew not if I'd be able to come back out of that, it actually ended up giving me the freedom to be able to experience and be able to be, or begin to start being the man that I was designed to be. One of the biggest things that came out of that time period was the ability to go in and out of that space, to allow myself to be able to actually experience those feelings and to be open to those feelings that I may have. Feelings of fear and not knowing what the future is. The feelings of sadness and grief over something that may be lost. The feelings of anger, of injustice, of things that may not have gone the way that I thought they were, or anger that may be covering up a fear or a sadness. And then also being able to experience joy at a deeper level. If I wouldn't have done the hard work of experiencing those fears and that deep sadness, as well as the anger that I felt was on the injustice or the injustice that was going on, I wouldn't have capacity to be able to have joy. Today, I recognize that it takes courage to be able to experience those feelings, and today I try to be mindful of that, to not suppress it and not push it away.